Hi everybody, welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, and dear Peter Clayton, who's stood in last, when was it? Thursday, I think. Yeah, to explain I couldn't do the show last Friday because I was just no voice, no wind. But we're getting there. I find that if I get onto the antibiotics, and I always leave it for a week, hoping it'll go away. It never does. But once I get to the antibiotics, it's pretty okay after a few days. I hope you've had a good time and you're not suffering from any winter flu or anything like that. 1st of July, ladies and gentlemen. 1st of July, the new financial year. And a raft of government handouts and giveaways and I don't know what. Let's not quibble. What they don't tell us, of course, or they don't remind us of, is that there is another jump in the cost of living, brought on by the cost of electricity going up. 35 years since the end of the Korean War. It's funny, I can actually remember. I would had to have been about 5 years old. And I'd sit there and listen to the radio, and they'd be announcing and calling out the names of the people as they came off the boat. How they did that, I don't know, but they had their name and their rank and their division and all of that sort of thing. This must have been when they were coming home from the Korean War. Awful. It's Red Shield Appeal time. Please remember that. Can you imagine how hard it would be in this weather to sleep in a doorway or in the parklands, and people do? So please support the Salvos. It's one of those charities that manage to somehow miraculously give 100% of everything they raise to the cause for which they raise it, which is fantastic. CBA, the Commonwealth Bank, shares are now worth more than gold. Wow! And you get value and you get a dividend, which you don't get with the hard stuff. In fact, gold has slipped back a bit, but not the stock market. Wall Street has hit an all-time high. How long that stays up there, I've got no idea. Who said all the good ideas had been thought of? There's a fellow called David Bartlett, I heard, as I lay in my sick bed. He had come up with a very good idea. It was simply to connect up, link up all the household and business CCTV cameras in the country. Every one of them, to produce one giant digital video surveillance system. Now, I think that's sheer genius. Why didn't somebody think of that before? Because if something happens, and you hear police ask for anyone who has CCTV or whatever, I don't think it would work with those GoPro cameras in cars, but the idea of being able to have one central visual display of everything. I'm not exactly sure how it would work, but it sounds fantastic to me. Anything that acts as a deterrent to crime. A report which says that 1 in 4 children is on the NDIS. Now that's pretty terrible. 1 in 4 children is categorized as disabled. More on that later, but I don't believe that. 25% of kids are disabled? When are we going to start joining the dots? The NDIS is an industry. It's an insatiable industry set up by Labor as a way to get as many people as possible onto welfare. No questions asked. We must ask ourselves why there is no other country in the world which has such a system. Think about it. It's a rort, but worse still, it's a social time bomb. This thing is growing at a rate of 10% a year. I know that they say their forecast is 8% a year, but it's 10%. Disabilities can't possibly grow by 10% a year, or the number of people claiming disability. 10% is not too bad when you consider it's down from 22%. This is totally unaffordable, ladies and gentlemen. It's as simple as that. Nearly think about this, $50 billion it will cost the taxpayers this year. How much of that do you reckon is waste and fraud? Here's a fun fact. We now have over 30% of the population on one kind of welfare or another. Now, with this government's reliance on income tax, we simply don't have enough workers to pay the bills. We're headed for trouble if we continue down the socialist track, believe me. I meant to mention this last week. Whyalla is struggling, but now Port Pirie is on the brink. More on Friday morning around the dining room table about that with Professor Ian Plimer. JeremyCordeaux.com, 9 till 12. That'll be interesting. That car carrier I mentioned to you a couple of weeks back, with the 3,000 cars on board, 800 of them electric, the Morning Midas, I think it was called, has finally sunk in the Pacific, still burning as she went down. People won't transport electric cars in ships, or anywhere for that matter, at this rate. So why do people go out and buy them? It's pretty amazing. The rising death toll on e-scooters, speaking of lithium-ion batteries, the death toll that no one seems to want to talk about. 2 Australian states are inquiring into deaths and injuries caused by e-scooters. It's a man-made problem, totally avoidable. What else is around? Oh, the Middle East. We can't forget about that. The Middle East. The Middle East ceasefire looked a little bit shaky there for a while, but Trump, there on the White House lawn, he sorted it out. From dropping B-2 bombs to dropping the F-bomb, right there in front of the world media, he became the first world leader to say fuck. Now, I have no idea what it is about that word or what its origin is. I mean, I don't know. Shakespearean? Maybe? I don't know. Why it is such a loaded word. Why is it such an issue? Professor Kate Burridge from Monash University is going to be with me, not this coming Friday, but the 11th. I think that could be the next one. The 11th of July. She's just done considerable research into that question. WTF, what the... But it's only a word. And why are all of the verboten words 4-letter words? Anyway, the professor will tell us about that. The lovely Isabella Taylor, who was on the show last Friday, has some wonderful news. She entered that, and I think we were talking about it around the dining room table, she entered the Legacy Junior Public Speaking Competition. And out of all the kids in the entire country, she's gone through to the finals. And they'll be held and decided in Adelaide in August. And you can do it, Isabella. You go get 'em. Roy Morgan research reveals that 48% of those people surveyed say they would like marijuana to be legalised. Now, with all of the social problems and all of the evidence that can be gleaned from other parts of the world that have gone down that track, I cannot believe that 49% of the population would want marijuana to be legalised. That would be a good one for Friday as well. 0491 65 68 60. Cost of living figures came out Wednesday. Headline inflation 2.1%, which is a good figure, a positive signal to the RBA, which will be free, even encouraged, to cut rates. Not long to wait till we know. The underlying inflation rate is 2.4%. The Reserve Bank watched this one particularly closely. Interest rates are determined by the economy staying within that band, that 2.5% band. We'll see. But my bet is that the rates will in fact be cut, and possibly another 2 before the end of the year. There's always talk about housing, the housing shortage, always, and the same with Canada and New Zealand, it seems. But guess what? Both countries have cut immigration dramatically. In fact, Canada have cut it to 0. 0. And housing availability has jumped, and the cost of rentals has fallen. Now there's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. There it is, right there in front of us. Stop complaining and adopt a policy that actually works. If you're concerned about housing, if you're serious, cut immigration and do it now. The cheapest place to buy your groceries? Oh, I think this rattles around all the time, doesn't it? Everybody says it's Aldi. Choice magazine has come out with their latest survey, and they say that it is definitely Aldi. No, it's not a sale. No, it's not a sale. They're advertising. I don't know who does their advertising, but it's pretty clever and obviously very effective. Now, the leader of the opposition, Liberal Susan Lee, at the National Press Club on Wednesday, you might have heard it on ABC News Radio. They broadcast them every Wednesday, and I think it's also on television. I heard it on radio. Susan Lee just doesn't get it. Doesn't get it. Yes, she is a hard-working, ambitious young woman. Articulate. I'm sure she's got degrees and all the rest of those sort of things. Not only is she not a conservative, she will alienate the conservative base of her own party. She opened her appearance at the press club with a welcome to country. Wrong. Wrong. Can't you tell that your core, your base, your supporter base, has had enough of this woke nonsense? Even Aboriginals treat it as a joke now. Just who are you trying to impress, win over? Susan Lee? Look, you might win over the lefty Canberra press corps, I don't know, but you won't win over Liberal voters. And the people within your own party, and your majority is not such that you can relax and become too comfortable. And particularly, you're headed for trouble if you go ahead with your suggestion, your passion, that the Libs adopt a quota system. I am a zealot. A quota system. No, that's not liberal. Should be best man or woman for the job. And by the way, the New South Wales Teachers Federation has ruled that the expression girls and boys no longer be allowed. No longer be allowed, ladies and gentlemen. What are you people in the Teachers Federation? Are you God? No, I think you're simply mad. Isn't it strange that teachers, the people responsible for educating and guiding the nation, don't want any delineation between male and female? Yet we had this huge debate about women in politics, particularly the Liberal Party, when according to the left-leaning, left-learning Teachers Union, not only doesn't it matter, it's not even to be mentioned. What does that do for affirmative action, huh? You see, we're all the same. You mightn't think so. All the same. Susan Lee could learn something from this little story too. I found this on 3AW. A local Melbourne council, Marybeck, I think it's called, sacked a street worker, a street sweeper. He cleaned up the bins, you know what I mean, on a truck. His name's Sean Turner. Sean Turner. He was sacked because he queried why on every occasion even a simple meeting between 2 or 3 people at the council in his, cleaning up department, had to do an acknowledgement to country. Ridiculous, he said. He was right, by the way. Anyway, he was sacked. Sacked for common sense. Now, I think I know what that feels like, actually. I think I do. Well, Fair Work Australia agreed with him and demanded that he be reinstated. Look, Susan, and anyone else who's interested in history or current affairs, Aboriginals don't own this country. They maybe have a case for declaring that they lost it. A lot of people around the world in countries where the land mass has changed hands dozens and dozens of times. The Aboriginals lost the country. They certainly have no claim to it at the moment. But if you want to hear something really strange, this possibly takes the cake. Pardon me. The new Victorian Commissioner, Police Commissioner, Mike Bush is his name, who is a New Zealander, flew into Melbourne last week to take up his new role and brought with him, listen to this, brought with him a contingent of Maori elders to welcome him to Australia. What? A New Zealander flies into Australia with a group of Maoris to welcome him to Australia. How does that work? This is insanity. Total insanity. Now, we're here with the best wishes of the rising sun, which is total sanity. If you want to sit in front of a big open fire, it's not so big as to be intimidating. It's just big enough to be really warm on a day like today where, while it's sunny outside, it just doesn't seem to have a lot of heat in the sun. But never mind, we're in the middle of winter, deep down in winter. 60 Bridge Street at Kensington. Lovely sponsors, Jackie and Grant. They'll look after you. The Rising Sun, regularly chosen, as I've mentioned to you often, as the best pub or inn in South Australia. And that's deservedly so, too. Lovely food, extensive menu, great bar, lots of atmosphere. And Jim Elder Fine Art Gallery in Melbourne Street, North Adelaide. With their second big auction coming up within about 6 weeks, I would imagine. Jim is out there looking for notable paintings, so if you have what you think is a notable painting, I think everything we have on our walls is notable, but some, clearly, in the value department, more notable than others. But Jim is a man who can tell you, he'll give you a free appraisal. 8267 2869. So if you'd like to submit a painting for his next upcoming auction, which goes all over the world, so you're guaranteed of getting world-class prices for things that you want to sell off your wall and onto his, that's the way to go. Jim Elder Fine Art, Melbourne Street, North Adelaide. Now, on Friday, you can reach us on 0491 65 68 60, jeremycordeaux.com, live streaming. If you don't want to get it on your Safari or Google it, you can go, if you get an app which is called Simple Radio. Simple Radio. Caroline tells me it is much clearer. Now, I don't know why, I haven't heard it, but apparently it's a very good way to hear the program if you want to. A 10-year review of the NAPLAN data. Now, they must have a database, a considerable amount of intelligence as to the position of educators and education in Australia. A lot of data. They have found and announced that kids in years 10 and 11 are writing at primary school levels or worse. So they're not talking about spelling, they're talking about writing. Anyway, what they say is Writing will be given a strong emphasis in every subject and classroom, even physical education. I don't know how that works. We will get back to basics. Well, I like the sound of that. Oh, really? Well, I have my doubts that teachers understand totally the basics and the importance of the written language and the spoken language. For that matter, with spell check, and I must admit I'm guilty of using that, and clearly if you rely on spell check, you're going to lose any instinctive knowledge of words that you might have. Spell check, I don't know, teachers probably won't even bother with the old spelling list, you know, a dozen words that every student had to learn every night and get tested on the next day. That's how we learn how to spell. Well, I'm not a great speller, but I can get by. It's pretty simple. But on handwriting, my father and grandfather, and probably your father and grandfather, had what was called copper plate writing. Copper plate writing, it was almost art. Teachers today have to go back to the copybook. We've got teachers out there in the classroom who would have never heard of a copybook. And they've got to go back there with a pen and a nib, not a ballpoint pen, if you're serious. But here's the question. We have to make up our minds, where is the emphasis? The future. Is it the pen and the page? Or is it the keyboard and the screen? I don't know. I'm of that generation which is caught in between and can live with both. But the younger generation, I don't know. I really don't know. How much time have I got, Pete? Okay. That ABC presenter got a lot of coverage. The ABC presenter, Antoinette Lattouf, I think her name was, who had been in court for the last 18 months, suing the national broadcaster who sacked her for allegedly disobeying a directive, or was it advice? An activist and a supporter of the Palestinian cause. She was directed or advised to stop posting material online. Now, this is where it gets silly, truly silly. This lady, I got no idea of her experience, her background, or where she came from. She was hired as a fill-in for just 5 days. I would find it very hard to imagine anyone being hired for 5 days. But to be hired 5 days on a contract, who gets a 5-day contract? I've never heard of such a thing in the 60 or 70 years of broadcasting experience that I have. She was cancelled after 3 days, but paid for all 5. So, what's the argument? What's the problem? Anyway, after 18 months, she was awarded $70,000. 70 grand. My God. What's going on here? Who is advising the ABC? A case like this, at the end of which there would have to be a multi-million-dollar legal bill. Is the ABC accountable in any way for how it handled this? You settle these things. You settle them preferably out of court and out of public view. Well, it's over. Well, then again, it might not be over. They could appeal. Then they could do it all again. And then she might even go back for her hat. Do people still do that? No. No. One more for the road, ladies and gentlemen. I got to leave you with this. No wonder it's hard to get anything done here in Australia. In the 3 years since Labor came to power, apart from the cost of electricity going up by 30% and the cost of living going up by 30%, Anthony Albanese has introduced more red tape than any other Prime Minister. More red tape than any other Prime Minister. 5,000 new rules and regulations in 3 years. Wow! Gee, if they were handing out Olympic gold medals for bureaucratic... you know what I mean.
Shite.
And let's not forget the 2,000 new staff at the Department of Infrastructure. What the hell do they do? I don't know. I really don't. Oh, yep. I brought my sunglasses down, not for affectation, ladies and gentlemen, but for good purpose. These are old, but not as old as they could be. Had them for years. And thank God I haven't lost this pair. I'm not very good with sunglasses, but the reason I brought that down, or those down, is that it's the anniversary. By the way, happy birthday or happy wedding anniversary if it's a day of celebration. The 1st of July. The year was 1200. Sunglasses were invented. Who do you think invented sunglasses? Any ideas? No? Pardon me. The Chinese. 1st of July. How would anyone remember that there was the 1st of July in 1200? That's truly weird. Anyway, I won't quibble. 1908 on this day, the distress signal, SOS, becomes the worldwide standard for help. ... dash, 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 ... by the way, in case you ever need to know. That was 1908. 1916, Coca-Cola brings the current formula to the market. 1916, and it worked oh so wonderfully well for so long until that 12-year-old in the marketing department in the 1980s decided that they were going to come back with a new formula. Dear oh dear. Happy birthday, Coca-Cola. Sir Nicholas Winston, or actually it's Winton, W-I-N-T-O-N. Sir Nicholas Winton, British humanitarian, the British Schindler. He saved 669 children from the Nazis. He dies on this day in 2015 at the age of 106. God bless you. 1949, John Farnham, English-Australian singer, born in Essex in England. 1949 on this day. Happy birthday, John. I hope you're feeling better. 1934, the first X-ray photo of the entire body, human body, taken by Arthur Fuchs of Eastman Kodak Company in Rochester, New York. On this day, 1934. Charles Goodyear, American chemist and manufacturing engineer, who invented the vulcanization process for rubber, dies at 59. It was 1860, the year. Pardon me. The Gideon Society was established to place Bibles in hotels, founded in Janesville, Wisconsin. On this day, in 1899, Sony introduces the Walkman, the first portable cassette player, in 1979. Happy birthday, well, he's not around anymore, but Marlon Brando, the American actor, The Godfather, Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, dies at 80. That was in 2004. 2009, Carl Malden, American actor, Streets of San Francisco, Streetcar Named Desire. He was in the movie with Marlon. American Express commercials, don't leave home without it. Whatever happened to American Express?
They're still around, aren't they?
Oh, you never hear about American Express.
I think they're still around.
Maybe they forgot to advertise.
Well, I
They
think
died with the
their
train
fees are
check.
too expensive.
Oh,
The fees are too high, I think. So
Fees are too high.
yeah.
Either that or they charge more as a commission for the retailers and the retailers push the other brands. It's a complicated world in which we live. Dan Aykroyd, 1952, he was born in Ontario. US President Andrew Jackson announces to Congress a bequest by James Smithson. It was 100,000 gold sovereigns to found the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. The Smithsonian. 1836. I went to the Smithsonian in Washington. They've got the space capsules and they've got rockets and aeroplanes. It's an amazing place. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there before the voice disappears entirely. I've got to have something left for Friday. Thank you so much for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's here. Gary walked in late. Thank you for being with us here in the Court of Public Opinion. And we'll see you Friday, 9 o'clock, jeremycordeaux.com. Bye for now.